Hey guys, welcome back to Fantasy Hub. Today's story is one of my favorites.
Asterisk. They say trauma has a way of rewriting your story before you even realize you're holding the pen. I never thought I'd be telling this story, not because I'm ashamed, but because for the longest time, I didn't believe I deserved to. Be heard. Asterisk, asterisk. My name is Lydia, and this is about the 2 years that nearly destroyed me. The woman who saved me and the ghost who protected us both. Asterisk, asterisk, picture this. 22 years old, fresh out of college with dreams bigger than my studio apartment. In Brooklyn, I had my portfolio, my determination, and absolutely no idea what I was walking into when I met Jeremy Carson at that rooftop party in Manhattan. Asterisk, asterisk. He was everything I thought I wanted. 6'2" designer suit that probably cost more than my rent, connections that could make or break careers with a single phone call. When he approached me at the bar, champagne float in hand, I felt like I was in a movie. Asterisk, asterisk. You have the look, he said, his eyes scanning me like I was a piece of art he was considering purchasing. Raw, natural. I could make you a star. Asterisk, asterisk, God. How pathetic that sounds now. But at 22, with student loans breathing down my neck, and a mother who'd sacrificed everything to put me through school, those words felt like salvation. Asterisk, asterisk. The first 3 months were intoxicating. Jeremy wasn't just my boyfriend, he was my manager, my mentor, my entire world. He booked me campaigns I could never have landed on my own. Vogue covers, Fashion Week runways, endorsement deals that made my bank account look like a phone number. Asterisk, asterisk, but success came with conditions I didn't understand at first. Jeremy began controlling what I wore, what I ate, who I spoke to. He'd say things like, "Trust me, darling. I know what's best for your career," while his hand rested possessively on my lower back. Asterisk, asterisk. The isolation was gradual, masterful even. First, it was my college friends. They're just jealous of your success, Lydia. They'll drag you down. Then my family. Your mother doesn't understand this industry. She fill your head with doubt. Finally, my colleagues. These other models see you as competition. They're not your friends. Asterisk, asterisk. By month 6, Jeremy was my only source of validation, my only connection to the outside world. And that's when the real darkness began. Asterisk, asterisk. The first time he hit me, I was on the phone with my mother. She'd called during one of our dinner dates, worried because she hadn't heard from me in weeks. I excused myself to take the call, and when I returned to the table, Jeremy's jaw was clenched. Asterisk, asterisk. Who's more important? He asked quietly, your career or your mommy? Asterisk, asterisk. I should have left right then. But I apologized instead, promised to set better boundaries. That night, back at his penthouse, I mentioned wanting to visit home for Christmas. The slap came so fast, so unexpectedly that I thought I'd imagined it. Asterisk, asterisk. I'm sorry, he said immediately, his eyes filling with crocodile tears. I just ... I can't bear the thought of losing you. You're everything to me. Asterisk, asterisk. The gaslighting was perhaps more devastating than the physical abuse. Jeremy had a way of making me question my own reality. Did I really provoke him? Was I being ungrateful? Dramatic? Needy? Asterisk, asterisk. You're nothing without me, became his favorite refrain. Look around, Lydia. See any other models from your background making it this far? You think that's coincidence? Asterisk, asterisk. The bruises were carefully placed ribs, shoulder blades, places the camera wouldn't catch. When makeup artists asked about the occasional mark on my neck, I'd laugh and blame it on rough passion with my boyfriend. They'd giggle knowingly, never suspecting the truth. Asterisk, asterisk, but Jeremy's cruelty extended beyond physical violence. He monitored my emails, deleted messages from potential clients who wanted to work with me directly. He sabotaged auditions by giving me wrong times or locations. Once, he even had his assistant call a major photographer to cancel a shoot I'd been excited about, claiming I was unreliable. Asterisk, asterisk, see, he'd say when I'd cry about missed opportunities. This industry is brutal. Good thing you have me to protect. You, asterisk, asterisk, the worst part wasn't the bruises or the isolation, it was how small I'd become. I'd gone from a confident woman with dreams to someone who apologized for breathing too loudly. I weighed 97 pounds, lived on coffee and the occasional apple, and hadn't laughed genuinely in months. Asterisk, asterisk, 2 years in, something shifted. Maybe it was the way Jeremy's assistant looked at me with pity, or maybe it was catching my reflection in a department store window and not recognizing the hollow-eyed woman staring back. But I started making small rebellions. Asterisk, asterisk, I booked a campaign without telling Jeremy, a local boutique looking for fresh faces. It wasn't Vogue, but it was mine. When Jeremy found out, his rage was unlike anything I'd ever seen. Asterisk, asterisk, you ungrateful. Little bitch, he snarled, backing me against the wall of his living room. After everything I've done for you, this is how you repay me? Asterisk, asterisk, but this time, when he raised his hand, something inside me snapped. Not broke, snapped back into place. I looked him dead in the eye and said, touch me again and I'll make sure. Every photographer in this city knows exactly what kind of man you really are. Asterisk, asterisk, the shock on his face was almost worth the hell I'd endured. In that moment, I saw him for what he truly was, not a powerful mogul, but a sad, pathetic man who could only feel strong by making others feel weak. Asterisk, asterisk, I walked out that night with nothing but the clothes on my back and $17 in my wallet. I slept on the couch of a girl I barely knew from a modeling job months earlier. For the first time in 2 years, I woke up without fear. Asterisk, asterisk, freedom, I learned, is both exhilarating and terrifying. After being controlled for so long, every choice felt monumental. What to eat for breakfast, which way to walk down the street, whether to smile at a stranger. These tiny decisions that most people take for granted felt like acts of rebellion. Asterisk, asterisk, I'd saved a little money from the campaign I'd booked behind Jeremy's back, enough to rent a tiny studio apartment in Queens. It wasn't much: a Murphy bed, a hot plate, and a window that overlooked a fire escape. But it was mine. Asterisk, asterisk, the first few weeks were rough. I'd wake up in cold sweats, expecting to find Jeremy standing over me. I'd jump at sudden noises, flinch when people moved too quickly. My phone buzzed constantly with his calls and texts, each message more threatening than the last. Asterisk, asterisk, you'll never work in this industry again. Asterisk, asterisk, you're nothing without me. Asterisk, asterisk, I'll make sure everyone knows what you really are. Asterisk, asterisk, I changed my number, blocked his emails, even filed a restraining order. But the damage was done. I felt like I was living in someone else's body, someone fragile and broken. That's when I rediscovered skating. I'd been a decent figure skater in high school, nothing spectacular, but I loved the way it felt too. Glide across the ice with nothing but the sound of my blades and my own breathing. There was a public rink in Brooklyn, one of those places where families took their kids on weekends and teenagers went to hold hands under the disco lights. Asterisk, asterisk, I started going at odd hours early morning before the crowds, late at night when it was just me and the maintenance crew. The cold air burned my lungs in the best way, and for the first time in years, I felt strong. My body was mine again, moving the way I wanted it to move. Asterisk, asterisk, it was during one of these late night sessions that I first saw her. Asterisk, asterisk, she was sitting in the stands, a small woman with paint-stained fingers, and the kind of smile that reaches your eyes. She had short, curly hair that caught the rink lights and wore an oversized sweater that looked like it had been loved for decades. Asterisk, asterisk, you're beautiful out there, she called when I glided near the boards. Not beautiful like a model beautiful, like freedom. Asterisk, asterisk, I almost laughed. She had no idea how close to the truth she was. Asterisk, asterisk, I'm Esme, she said, extending a hand when I stepped off the ice. Esme Rogers, I've been watching you skate for the past few weeks. You look like you're dancing with ghosts. Asterisk, asterisk, there was something about her directness that should have made me uncomfortable, but instead I felt seen. Really seen for the first time in years. Asterisk, asterisk, I'm Lydia, I said, and was surprised by how good it felt to say my own name without fear. Asterisk, asterisk, I know, she replied with a grin. I asked Tony at the front desk. He said you come here to think loud, whatever that means. I laughed, actually laughed, and it felt like muscle memory returning. Esmo's a makeup artist for theater productions, the kind of person who could transform actors into anything from demons to angels with nothing but brushes and paint. She worked mostly downtown, in those small black box theaters where passion mattered more than profit. Asterisk, asterisk, I love what I do. She told me over coffee after that first meeting. There's something magical about helping people become who they need to be, even if it's just for a few hours. Asterisk, asterisk, she had her own story, of course, everyone does. Her grandmother had raised her after her parents died in a car accident when she was 12. The old woman had been a seamstress, a quiet artist who could make magic with fabric and thread. Asterisk, asterisk, Grandma always said I had the gift. Asma explained, her fingers tracing patterns on the coffee shop table. Not just for makeup, but for seeing people, really seeing them. Asterisk, asterisk, our first date was unconventional. Instead of dinner and a movie, Esma took me to a small gallery opening in Soho. The artist was a friend of hers, someone who painted portraits of trauma survivors. Asterisk, asterisk, I thought you might understand these, she said softly, watching me study a painting of a woman with eyes like storm clouds. The way she captures that moment when you realize you're stronger than what tried to break you. Asterisk, I stood in front of that painting for 20 minutes, tears streaming down my face. Not because I was sad, but because I felt understood. The woman in the painting had my eyes, not the color, but the depth. The knowledge that comes from surviving. Something that should have destroyed you. Asterisk, asterisk, how did you know? I asked Esma as we walked home that night. Asterisk, asterisk, the way you move, she said simply, like you're apologizing for taking up space. I recognize it because I used to move that way too. Asterisk, asterisk, she told me about her own demons that night, an ex-boyfriend who'd convinced her she was worthless, a period of self-destruction that had nearly cost her everything. But she'd found her way back to herself through art, through the act of creating. Beauty from pain. Asterisk, asterisk, healing isn't linear, she said, her hand finding mine as we walked. Some days you'll feel invincible. Others you'll want to disappear. That's okay. What matters is that you keep showing up. Asterisk, asterisk, our relationship developed slowly, carefully. Esma never pushed, never demanded more than I was ready to give. She understood that intimacy could be terrifying for someone who'd been violated in so many ways. Asterisk, asterisk, instead of traditional romantic gestures, she'd leave little notes in my apartment, poems she'd written, sketches of me skating, pressed flowers from her morning walks. Once, she left a mirror on my kitchen counter with a sticky note that read, "Beautiful woman lives here." Asterisk, asterisk, I'd avoided mirrors for months, unable to look at myself without seeing Jeremy's hands on my skin, but Esme's note made me try. I looked. At my reflection, and for the first time in 2 years, saw myself rather than his victim. Asterisk asterisk. The first time we made love, I cried, not from pain, but from relief. Her touch was gentle, reverent, like she was handling something precious. She whispered my name like a prayer, and when I tensed up, she'd stop and hold me until I felt safe again. Asterisk, asterisk, you're not broken. She'd murmur against my skin, you're healing. There's a difference. Asterisk, asterisk, with Esme, I learned that love didn't have to hurt. It could be soft conversations at 2 a.m., shared cups of tea on rainy mornings, hands intertwined during movies. It could be someone who celebrated your victories without trying to claim credit, who held space for your pain without trying to fix it. Asterisk, asterisk, 6 months into our relationship, I landed a campaign with a major beauty brand, not through connections or manipulation, but because they loved my look. When I called Esim to share the news, she screamed so loudly I had to hold the phone away from my ear. Asterisk, asterisk, we're celebrating, she declared. Dinner, dancing, the whole 9 yards. You're going to wear that red dress you never think you look good. And I'm going to spend the entire night telling you how wrong you are. Asterisk, asterisk, that night, dancing in a tiny club in the village, I realized I was falling in love. Not the desperate, needy attachment I'd mistaken for love with Jeremy, but something deeper. The kind of love that makes you want to be better, not because you're not good enough, but because you have something beautiful to offer. Asterisk, asterisk, I love you. I told her as we swayed to music that was too loud for the intimate words. Asterisk, asterisk, I love you too. She replied, and I believed her. More importantly, I believed I deserved it. Asterisk, asterisk, but even in happiness, shadows have a way of creeping in. Jeremy's harassment had stopped, but something else was beginning. Something that would test not just our love, but our understanding of what was possible in this world. Hash hash Act 3, the haunting, the mirror's secret love. I was learning doesn't exist in a vacuum. It lives in the spaces between people, the histories they carry, the families that shape them. And sometimes, love inherits things that can't be explained by logic or reason. Asterisk, asterisk, Esme's grandmother had died 6 months before we met, leaving behind a house in Astoria that had been in the family for 3 generations. It was one of those narrow, Queen's row houses that seemed to lean against its neighbors for support, with a front garden that exploded with wildflowers every spring. Asterisk, asterisk, I can't bring myself to sell it. Esme confessed as we stood on the front steps, keys heavy in her hand. It feels like selling my childhood, you know? But I can't afford to keep it either. Asterisk, asterisk, the house smelled like lavender and old books, with hints of the rosewater perfume her grandmother had worn until the day she died. Family photos lined the hallway, generations of strong women with Esme's same intelligent eyes and stubborn chin. Asterisk, asterisk, Grandma Rosa was special, Esme said as we toured the rooms. She came from Sicily with nothing but a sewing machine and a head full of stories. People in the neighborhood used to come to her for advice, for healing. She had what she called the sight. Asterisk, asterisk, I'd never been particularly superstitious. But there was something about the house that felt alive. Doors would creak open on their own. Shadows would move in ways that didn't match the light. And sometimes I'd catch glimpses of movement in my peripheral vision that would disappear when I turned to look. Asterisk, asterisk, she's still here, Esme said matter-of-factly. When I mentioned the strange occurrences, I can feel her watching over things. It's actually comforting. Asterisk, asterisk, it was in the master bedroom that I first encountered the mirror. Asterisk, it was an antique vanity mirror, probably from the 1920s, with an ornate silver frame that had tarnished beautifully with age. The glass was slightly warped, the way old mirrors get, giving reflections a dreamlike quality. Asterisk, asterisk. But when I looked into it, something strange happened. My reflection seemed to move a split second before I did, like it was anticipating my actions. I blinked hard, chalked it up to stress and imagination. Asterisk, asterisk. That was Grandma's mirror, Esme said, appearing behind me. She used to say it showed the truth, not just what people wanted to see. She'd sit there for hours, brushing her hair and talking to whoever was listening. Asterisk, asterisk. We decided to spend weekends at the house, partly to save money on rent, partly because Esma wasn't ready to let go completely. I loved the way she came alive there, moving through rooms with the confidence of someone who belonged. She'd cook Sunday dinners using her grandmother's recipes, filled the house with the scent of garlic and basil and memories. Asterisk, asterisk. It was during one of these weekend stays that the mirror began to show me things. Asterisk, asterisk. The first time I was getting ready for bed, brushing my teeth in the vanity mirror. In the reflection, I saw Esme behind me, except she wasn't really there. The Esme in the mirror was wearing a white dress I'd never seen before, her hair longer than it actually was. She was smiling, but her eyes were sad. Asterisk, asterisk. When I turned around, the room was empty. When I looked back at the mirror, only my own confused reflection stared back. Asterisk, asterisk. Did you see that? I asked Esme when she came upstairs with 2 cups of tea. Asterisk, asterisk. See what? She replied, but her voice was careful, like she was afraid of the answer. Asterisk, asterisk. I described what I'd seen, expecting her to laugh or suggest I was tired. Instead, she set down the tea and sat heavily on the bed. Asterisk, asterisk. The white dress, she said quietly. That was Grandma's wedding dress. She wore it only once, on the day she married my grandfather. She saved it for me, said I'd wear it when I found my person. Asterisk, asterisk. What does that mean? I asked, though part of me already knew. Asterisk, asterisk. I think she's trying to tell us something, Esme said, her voice barely above a whisper. She always said she'd look after the women in our family, make sure we were protected and loved. Asterisk, asterisk. Over the next few weeks, the mirror showed me more visions. I'd see Esme and myself in different clothes, different ages, holding hands in places I'd never been. Sometimes I'd see an older woman, Rosa. I assumed watching us with approval. Asterisk, asterisk. But the strangest vision came on a Tuesday night in November. Asterisk, asterisk. I was alone in the house, Esme working late at the theater. I'd gone upstairs to get a book and caught sight of myself in the mirror. But this time, it wasn't me looking back. It was Jeremy. Asterisk, asterisk. He was standing in what looked like a basement or cellar, his expensive suit torn and dirty. His eyes were wild, desperate. He was screaming something, but I couldn't hear the words. Behind him, I could see the faint outline of a woman in a floral dress, her face obscured by shadows. Asterisk, asterisk. The vision lasted only seconds, but it left me shaking. When Esme came home, she found me sitting on the floor, staring at the mirror. Asterisk, asterisk. He's in trouble, I said, surprising myself with how little emotion I felt about it. Jeremy, I saw him in the mirror. He looked trapped. Asterisk, asterisk. Esme sat beside me, her hand warm on my back. What did you see exactly? Asterisk, asterisk. I described the basement, the woman in the floral dress, Jeremy's obvious terror. As I spoke, I realized something else. I wasn't afraid for him. I felt nothing at all. Asterisk. Asterisk, Grandma Rosa, Esme said after a long silence. She wore floral dresses every day of her life. Side day reminded her of the gardens in Sicily. But she's dead, I said, though even as I spoke the words, I knew how naive they sounded. Death doesn't always mean gone, Esme replied. Not for women like my grandmother. She made promises before she died, swore she'd protect the people she loved, What if she's keeping those promises? Asterisk, asterisk, the next morning we woke to news that made my blood run cold. Jeremy Carson had been reported missing by his assistant. He had failed to show up for several important meetings, hadn't been seen at his apartment in days. The police were investigating, but there were no leads. Asterisk, asterisk. How do you feel about this? Esme asked gently, studying my face for any sign of distress. Asterisk, asterisk, I considered the question seriously. How did I feel about my abuser's disappearance? Relief? Guilt? Fear that he'd somehow return to hurt me again. Asterisk, asterisk, safe, I said finally. For the first time in years, I feel completely safe. Asterisk, asterisk, that night, I dreamed of Rosa. She was sitting in a garden, her hands busy with needlework. She looked up at me with eyes that were kind but fierce. The eyes of a woman who'd survived poverty and loss and discrimination. Asterisk, asterisk. You're safe now. Bombina, she said in accented English. Some men, they think they can take what isn't theirs. But they forget the women who came before. We remember. We protect. Asterisk, asterisk, I woke with tears on my cheeks, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of gratitude, of finally understanding that I wasn't alone in this world. I had Esme, yes, but I also had something else, the protection of a woman who'd loved fiercely enough to reach across the veil between worlds. Asterisk, asterisk, the mirror never showed me Jeremy again. But sometimes, late at night, I'd catch glimpses of Rosa in the reflection, nodding approvingly as she watched over us. Esma's right, death doesn't always mean gone. Sometimes it means transformed, elevated, made into something more powerful than flesh and blood. Asterisk, asterisk. Some people might call it impossible, supernatural, the stuff of ghost stories. But I call it love. The kind that transcends physics and logic, the kind that says, not on my watch, when someone tries to harm what you've sworn to protect. Asterisk. Act 4, the liberation, love after darkness, asterisk. They say healing isn't linear, and I've learned that's true. But what they don't tell you is that sometimes healing comes in moments of perfect clarity, when the world suddenly makes sense in a way it never has before. Asterisk, asterisk, for me. That moment came on a Saturday morning in March, exactly 1 year after I'd walked out of Jeremy's apartment. I was in Rose's kitchen, making coffee and listening to Esm hum while she painted at the table. Sunlight streamed through the windows, catching the dust motes that danced in the air like tiny spirits. Asterisk, asterisk, I looked at this woman I'd fallen in love with paint in her hair, wearing my old college sweatshirt, completely absorbed in creating something beautiful, and I realized I was home. Not in the house, though I'd grown to love its creaking floors and stubborn doors. I was home in myself, and this life we'd built together. Asterisk, asterisk, I want to marry you, I said, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. Asterisk, asterisk, Esm looked up from her, painting, a smile spreading across her face like sunrise. Are you proposing to me, Lydia Chen? Asterisk, asterisk, maybe, I laughed, suddenly nervous. I mean, I don't have a ring, and I'm wearing pajamas. And this is probably the least romantic proposal in history. Asterisk, asterisk, yes, she said, standing up so quickly she knocked over her water jar. Yes, yes, obviously yes. Asterisk, asterisk, we were both crying and laughing, paint-stained hands and coffee-flavored kisses. And in that moment, I understood something profound about love. It's not about perfect timing or grand gestures. It's about choosing each other again and again in the small moments that make up a life. Asterisk, asterisk, the engagement ring came later, a vintage piece we found at an estate sale in Brooklyn, a sapphire surrounded by tiny diamonds that caught the light like stars. But the real commitment had been made months before, in 1,000 small choices to stay, to trust, to believe in a future that neither of us had been sure we deserved. Asterisk, asterisk, planning a wedding well. Still processing trauma was interesting, to say the least. I'd wake up some mornings excited about flowers and venues, and other days I'd panic about being the center of attention, about standing in front of people and promising forever when I was still learning how to live in the present. Asterisk, asterisk, we don't have to do anything traditional. Esma reminded me during one of my anxiety spirals. This is our wedding. We make the rules. Asterisk, asterisk, in the end, we decided on something small and meaningful. Just 20 people in Rosa's garden, surrounded by the wildflowers that bloomed every spring like a benediction. Esme's theater friends provided the music. My mother flew in from California and cried through the entire ceremony, and somehow we managed to create something beautiful from the broken pieces of our past. Asterisk, asterisk, I wore the white dress from my vision in the mirror, Rosa's wedding dress, altered to fit me perfectly. When I looked at myself in the mirror that morning, I saw not just my reflection, but the faint outline of the woman who'd worn it before me, her hand resting approvingly on my shoulder. Asterisk, asterisk, she's here, Esme said softly, standing behind me. I can feel her. Asterisk, asterisk, the ceremony was simple but profound. We'd written our own vows, words that acknowledged the darkness we'd both survived and the light we'd found in each other. Asterisk, asterisk, I promise to love you not despite your scars, but because of them, I said, my voice steady despite the tears. They're proof of your strength, your survival, your capacity to heal. I promise to be your safe harbor and your greatest adventure, your soft place to fall and your reason to soar. Asterisk, asterisk, Esme's vows were poetry as I'd expected. She spoke about transformation, about the way we'd found each other in the middle of our own becoming. She promised to hold space for my healing, to celebrate my victories, to remind me of my worth on the days when I forgot. Asterisk, asterisk, I promise to love you with the fierce protection of the women who came before us, she said, her eyes finding mine. To build a life with you that honors both our pain and our joy, a life that would make our grandmothers proud. Asterisk, asterisk, as she spoke those words, the mirror in the bedroom window caught the afternoon light and flashed like a signal. I swear I saw Rosa in reflection, wearing the same floral dress from my vision, her face radiant with joy. Asterisk, asterisk, the reception was magical in the way that only small, intimate gatherings can be. We danced to music played by Esme's friends, ate food prepared by my mother and Esme's theater family, and told stories that made everyone laugh until their sides hurt. Asterisk, asterisk, but the most meaningful moment came when we were cutting the cake. My mother pulled me aside, her eyes serious. Asterisk, asterisk, I'm proud of you, she said, her voice thick with emotion. Not just for surviving, but for choosing to live. Really live, not just exist. Asterisk, asterisk, I had help, I said, glancing at Esm, who was deep in conversation. With our efficient about the metaphysical properties of wedding cake. Asterisk, asterisk. Yes, my mother agreed. But you had to be brave enough to accept it. That's not nothing, sweetheart. Asterisk, asterisk, later that night, after the guests had gone home and we'd cleaned up the garden, Esma and I sat on the front steps of the house, still in our wedding clothes, but barefoot, sharing a bottle of champagne that had somehow survived the celebration. Asterisk, asterisk, how does it feel? She asked, her head on my shoulder, being married. Asterisk, asterisk, I considered the question seriously. How did it feel to be legally bound to someone who'd seen me at my worst and chosen to love me anyway? How did it feel to have a future that stretched out before us, full of possibility instead of fear? Asterisk, asterisk, safe, I said finally. Like I can finally stop looking over my shoulder. Asterisk, asterisk, good, Esma said, pressing a kiss to my temple. Because you're stuck with me now. I'm going to love you so hard you'll forget you ever felt anything else. Asterisk, asterisk, we never did find out what happened to Jeremy. The police investigation went cold after a few months, and I stopped reading the updates. Some people whispered that he'd fled the country to avoid his debts. Others suggested he'd met with foul play. I preferred to think he'd simply ceased to exist, cancelled out by the combined force of my refusal to be his victim and Rosa's protective spirit. Asterisk, asterisk. The truth is, I didn't need to know. His disappearance had given me something more valuable than revenge. It had given me peace. The knowledge that he couldn't hurt me anymore, couldn't contact me or threaten me or make me question my own worth. Asterisk. 6 months after the wedding, I booked my first major campaign since leaving Jeremy. It was for a domestic violence prevention organization, a series of portraits showing survivors in moments of triumph rather than defeat. The tagline was, "Stronger than what broke us." And when I saw the billboards around the city, I felt something I'd never experienced before. Pride. Asterisk, asterisk. Not pride in being a victim, but pride in being a survivor. Pride in the journey from broken to whole, from silent to speaking, from surviving to thriving. Asterisk, asterisk. The campaign led to more work, the kind of meaningful projects that fed my soul rather than just my bank account. I became the face of a nonprofit that helped women escape abusive relationships, started speaking at events about trauma and healing, used my platform to amplify voices that had been silenced. Asterisk, asterisk. You're glowing, Esma said one evening as we reviewed. The proofs from my latest shoot, like literally glowing. It's kind of supernatural. Asterisk, asterisk. It's called happiness. I laughed, but I knew what she meant. There was something different about me now, something that hadn't been there before. A confidence that came from knowing I was exactly where I belonged, doing exactly what I was meant to do. Asterisk, asterisk. Our first wedding anniversary fell on a Tuesday. We'd planned a quiet dinner at home, just the two of us and Rosa's lingering presence. But when I walked into the bedroom that morning, I found something that made my heart skip. Asterisk, asterisk. The mirror was reflecting not just my image, but two figures standing behind me. Rosa in her familiar floral dress, and another woman I didn't recognize younger. With my eyes and Esme's smile. Asterisk, asterisk. Do you see her? I called to Esme, who was making coffee downstairs. Asterisk, asterisk. See who? She called back, but her footsteps were already on the stairs. Asterisk, asterisk. When she entered the room, she gasped. In the mirror, the unknown woman was holding a baby, a little girl with impossibly dark hair and eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of generations. Asterisk, asterisk. Is that? I started, but couldn't finish the question. Asterisk, asterisk. Our daughter, Esma whispered, her hand finding mine. She's showing us our daughter? Asterisk, asterisk. The vision lasted only moments, but it left us both shaken in the best way. We talked about children, of course, but it had always felt like a someday dream. Now, seeing that possible future reflected back at us, it felt like a promise. Asterisk, asterisk. Not yet, I said, though I wasn't sure if I was talking to Esme or to Rosa or to the universe itself. But someday, when we're ready. Asterisk, asterisk. The mirror shimmered once, as if in acknowledgement, and then showed only our own reflections, two women who'd found their way to each other across the wreckage of their past, standing in a room blessed by the love of those who'd come before. Asterisk, hash, hash. Epilogue. The mirror's promise. Asterisk. 3 years have passed since that first vision in the mirror, and I'm writing this from our new home, a restored Victorian in Park Slope that has room for the family we're building. The baby Rosa showed us is sleeping in the next room, 6 months old and already showing signs of her grandmother's fierce spirit. Asterisk, asterisk, we named her Rose, of course. Not Rosa chef to earn that name, like the woman who watches over us, but Rose for new beginnings and the beauty that grows from thorny ground. Asterisk, asterisk, the antique mirror came with us when we moved, installed in our bedroom where it catches the morning light and sometimes shows us glimpses of the future. We've seen ourselves growing old together, seen Rose taking her first steps, seen the garden we'll plant and the life we'll build. Asterisk, asterisk. But mostly, it shows us what we already know, that love is stronger than trauma, that healing is possible, that the women who came before us didn't survive just so we could merely exist. They survived so we could flourish. Asterisk, asterisk, I still model, though I'm more selective now about the projects I take on. I still speak at events about domestic violence and recovery, still use my platform to amplify voices that need to be heard. But my real work, the work that feeds my soul, is this building a life with someone who sees me, choosing love over fear, showing my daughter that she comes from a line of women who refuse to be broken. Asterisk, asterisk. Sometimes late at night when Rose is fussing and I'm walking her around the house, I'll catch a glimpse of Rosa in the shadows. She's always smiling, always watching, always protecting. Death, I've learned, is just another word for transformation. Love doesn't die, it just changes form. Asterisk, asterisk, and sometimes, when I'm feeling particularly grateful, I'll whisper a thank you. To the mirror, to the woman who saw something worth protecting in a broken girl who'd forgotten her own worth. I'll thank her for Jeremy's disappearance, for the way she cleared the path so I could find my way home. Asterisk, asterisk, I don't know if she can hear me, but I like to think she can. I like to think she's proud of the life we've built, the family we've created, the love that grows stronger with each passing day. Asterisk, asterisk, after all, that's what the mirror promised, not just survival, but transformation. Not just healing, but wholeness. Not just love, but love that transcends everything that tried to destroy it. Asterisk, asterisk, and that's a promise worth keeping generation after generation. Reflection after reflection, love after love. Asterisk, asterisk, the mirror keeps its promises. And so do we asterisk.